Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Cabinet today, and welcome anybody who is watching at home or who may in the future. I'm Peter Fox, Leader of the Council. I'll just invite colleagues to introduce themselves. Perhaps Liz.
Good afternoon, County Councillor Liz Hackett-Payne, Cabinet Member for Education.
Councillor Phil Murphy, Cabinet Member for Resources.
Bob Greenland, Deputy Leader, responsibility for enterprise, leisure and culture.
Phil Hobson, Deputy Leader, Cabinet Member for Community Development.
Jeff Burrows, Cabinet Member for Social Care, Safeguarding and Health.
Thank you, colleagues. Simon, did you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, Leader and Cabinet and Senior Officers. Simon Howarth, Independent Leader, thank you.
Thank you all, and welcome officers, and if you could introduce yourself if you contribute today. Apologies from Brian Jones. He's unwell today, and we wish him a speedy recovery. Apologies, I know, for Peter Davis, one of our key officers. Today, very sadly, Peter's father passed away recently, and I'm sure we'll all join in our thoughts, that offering our condolences and sharing our deepest thoughts with him at this time, and wish him well. Okay, the item 2, declarations of interest, are there? Phil.
Yes, Leader, thank you. I have a personal but non-prejudicial interest with regards to item 4B, the Community Asset Transfer Gwent Village Hall, as I'm a member of the Community Council.
Okay, thank you. Any other? No, it's only for permanent elected members. If you find something as we go through the agenda, as usual, please declare that verbally and fill in the appropriate pro forma. Okay, we'll go on to the item 3, no reports from select committees today, and item 4 then to go into the reports. Only 4 reports today, but some significant ones amongst them, and the first one is about Gilwern Section 106 funding. I'll invite Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, thank you, Leader, and this is to consider increasing the level of grant offered to 3 of the applicants from the Section 106 balances held by the Council for the developments at Timar and Caermeldon in Gilwern. The 3 applicants are Cliddock Football Club, Gilwern Bowling Club and Gilwern Football Club. And the reason for the increased level of grant required, which is in the sum of 10,559, is that the 3 projects were awarded their grants on the basis of net expenditure, i.e. that they were going to be able to recover the VAT on the expenditure. It's turned out that that's now no longer going to be possible, so that they can pay their bills, for want of a better expression. There's necessity to increase the level of grant to each of those three bodies. That's from an unallocated balance of 33,394, so there's still 22,839 left. So this is purely to facilitate the proper conclusion of the finances regarding those projects.
Okay, thank you, Phil. That's very straightforward and makes absolute sense. Cabinet colleagues, anybody wish to add anything?
Yeah, agree with that.
Okay, agree with that. Simon, anything from your perspective?
Yeah, I'd just like to ask a couple of questions, Leader. The first one would be, as we all know, that on your first report you had to Cabinet some months ago there, you agreed that report, and now this report is back. But on that first report, there was actually a threshold of a certain amount of money which was allocated for the first phase. And that first phase of maybe £90,000, because the second phase of tranche of money was not available until, let's say, plot 26 was built. And then what I'm asking here now is these projects have started, I'm led to believe, most of them, and some have actually been finished. Will this tip it over the threshold, or will some of them projects have to be put on hold? I just need to get the balance here, because until the second tranche of money is made available, none of these projects can go ahead. And you're talking about £10,000 extra lump sum. That may be one extra third, another £5,000 or whatever on top of the 90. You see my point? Some of these all these projects have started. Now, they may be scaled down in sections, the projects, in phases. But I think the important thing is here is that if they've been clearance to go ahead with their projects, which I'm led to believe they have, actually one is completed. We as an authority as well had first tranche of 90,000 put forward also to do our projects in the Outdoor Education Centre. What I want to be clear now is if we are finding another top up, let's make sure that some of these projects do not tip us over until we get the money from the developer, the second tranche. And my last question to yourselves as Cabinet is we're paid a certain amount of sum of money per plot for the recreation side, which is what this tranche of money is. If there is any movement in the developer descaling that project, does that mean that the money will not be forthcoming? Or is because they've signed a legal document, let's say on 90 properties, just a rough, that if they only build 70, does that mean that the sum per plot is not given by the developer? And the reason why I'm saying that is because I need to be clear in my mind that some of these projects can be deliverable. And that may be information I've just heard recently. I just need to be clear that if the legal agreement is signed, leader, does that mean they have got to actually bring this money to the table, whether they build 10 or 90? I just need to be clear with that.
Okay, thanks. Obviously, there are two different reports here. You're reflecting on the report which we deferred. This isn't talking about the Gilwern school money, but no. But there's a link to that, I understand.
This is two tranches of money, which this is built round as well.
Yes, yeah, but yeah, yeah. Okay, so there might be a couple of perspectives on this. There may be a planning perspective. Perhaps Mark might want to contribute on, and Mike may want to come in as well. Who would wish to?
Or Kelly.
Oh, Kelly. Kelly, sorry. Mike start then. Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Leader. There were two questions. The first one is that the only grant offers that we've made so far are those projects that are going to be funded from the TMR money. So we've only given grant allocations to schemes where we have the funding in place. And if you agree this recommendation today, because 2 or 3 of those schemes have yet to start, we wouldn't be overspending the money that we've got in the budget for the TMR development. The second point is that if the developer reduces the number of properties that he constructs on the site at Kai Meldon, well then the contribution would reduce because it is based on the number of dwellings that are going to be constructed. But that's no different from any of the other Section 106 agreements that we've got. The money from Kai Meldon is due to be paid over to us prior to the occupation of the 24th dwelling. And we have a meeting coming up in the next 2 weeks where we roundly expect that trigger date to have been reached, because 2 months ago there were 22 dwellings that had been occupied. So we're anticipating that we'll get payment. If we do get payment in the next couple of months, and eventually the developer reduces the number of houses he develops, well then we would have to give proportionately some money back to the developer because he would have overpaid us. And that's standard with any Section 106 agreement, Leader.
That's helpful. Mark, anything you want to add, or Kelly? That's pretty self-explanatory, pretty clear. Okay on that, Simon? Yeah, thank you. Dimitri, anything you wish to add on this first report? Okay, thanks for that. Let's wish these projects well, and let's move to the recommendations then. In 2.1, the revised grant offers be made to the following organisations from the Section 106 balances held by the Council in respect of Timau and Keimeldon's Section 106 agreements, and they're listed there: Clerk Football Club, Gilwan Bowling Club and Gilwan Football Club. And 2.2, the increased level of grant amounting to £10,559 for the 3 projects be met from the unallocated balance of 33,394, leaving that unallocated balance of 22,839. So there is a buffer still there anyway, actually, in that following that last question. So the recommendation is there. All in favour? Great, thank you very much. Okay, I'll take the next report, and that is the proposed community asset transfer of Cowent Village Hall and playing fields. And the purpose here, members, is to consider the proposed community asset transfer of that Cowent Village Hall and playing fields to the Cowent Community Council to provide the ongoing provision of the local village hall and community playing fields and development of the building for further community activities. You'll see in 3.1 that the council was approached by Cowent Playing Fields Association and the Community Council to consider a community asset transfer to enable the Playing Fields Association to apply for additional grants to upgrade and improve the facilities. That's always the benefit of a community asset transfer, where they can do things that perhaps we can't always do. You'll see in 3.2 that there is a 21-year lease in place from 2006 with a rental value of 8,600. As we know in the resource implications, you'll see that that is discounted by 95%, as with many of these things. So there's a £430 financial implication to the council. There is noted in 3.4 there is a restriction against the title of the site, which states that no disposition can be made without a certificate from the National Playing Fields, showing that the provision of deed of dedication dated 24th of May 13 between the council and the playing fields has to be complied with. It's pretty well straightforward. It's something we are not unfamiliar with, and it's pretty straightforward as that, I think. If anybody wishes to add anything, please. No? Anything, Dimitri? No? Simon? No? Okay, so the recommendation is then to agree to dispose of the freehold interest, Cowent Village Hall and playing fields at nil value to Cowent Community Council using the powers provided via the General Disposal Consent Order, Wales 2003. All in favour of that? Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to the Monmouthshire Local Development Plan Annual Monitoring Report. Bob Greenland.
Thank you, Leader. Members will be aware that the original Local Development Plan was adopted by the Council in February 2014, and we are required to undertake an annual monitoring report each year. What we have before us is the monitoring report, the second monitoring report as a result of the LDP and the progress to it. If you look through it, you will see that in many respects we have followed and are up to date with all our projections that we made at the time we set the LDP. So that is obviously good news. The area where we do have some issues is on the delivery of housing throughout Monmouthshire. Members will remember that at the time we set the LDP, we identified 5 strategic sites which were to deliver the majority of the housing, but as well as that, we were to have some pepper pot housing throughout the council area. The pepper pot housing is generally going well. The issue that we have is that there are various delays on the most of the strategic sites, to be perfectly honest, and they are for a variety of reasons. I won't go into them necessarily at the moment, but we know that there are delays on some of those sites. So the question arises, do we have sufficient housing in our local development plan? And I think that what we need to consider here is that we should be keeping a 5-year housing supply. And you will see from the report that that has dropped down to 4.1 years supply. That means that we could be open to applications from developers wishing to develop in areas outside those that we have allocated for housing. So what the annual monitoring report is suggesting is that we enter into a review of the LDP. Now, we are in any case required to make a 4-year review every 4 years into the LDP, so we would be required to make one in 2018. What we are proposing, therefore, is that we undertake a review now early to address the issues. Now, it will mean that what we have to do is to move forward. If we agree to this at the moment, we will have to move forward into a process where we eventually come back with a review plan. And that is not a short process. It could take some time to get to that. But that would be the process that we would follow from here on if members were to agree the recommendations in the report. I should add also that the annual monitoring report has been considered only last week, in fact, by the Economy and Development Committee. You will see that one of the recommendations is to receive those notes from that meeting. Now, I have received those notes, and so just for completeness, Leader, if I just read out what has been the views of the committee. The committee discussed the local development plan and annual monitoring report in depth and agreed that the report should be submitted to the Welsh Government. Members furthermore supported the recommendation to commence the review of the LDP, particularly given the concerns that were raised over our 5-year land supply and the number of completions in the last reporting period. The committee accepted that the review would determine whether there is a need for revisions of the LDP and agreed to await the conclusions of the review, which would be reported back to the Select Committee. The committee requested that an update report be brought to them in due course on the Community Infrastructure Levy, together with a list of applicable areas. Members also requested that supplementary planning guidance on affordable housing be brought to a joint scrutiny meeting with Strong Communities and Adult Select Committee at the appropriate time. So that is the part of the recommendations to receive that report. So if we take the recommendations that we have, they are to endorse the second annual monitoring report, to resolve to commence an early review of the LDP, and to note the comments raised by the Economy and Development.
Okay, thank you, Bob. And thanks to the Select Committee for furnishing us with their views, which seem sensible and supportive of the recommendations to move us forward. So I welcome that. Clearly there's a lot of information contained within the covering report and also the monitoring report, which is attached there. We know Mark and Martin here today, if anybody wishes to further interrogate some of the points which have already been identified. But clearly that is a concern, the housing supply. We recognise that. I don't know if we can seek some reassurance that perhaps some of those schemes are going to be accelerated in the near future and we can close some of that gap. But perhaps at this point, if members, if you've got something you want to say, or I'll just ask for perhaps Martin or Mark to give us a further position if they wish.
Thank you, Leader. I don't think we've got anything to add to what Councillor Greenland said, to be honest, unless there's specific questions. I think he captured everything that needed to be said at this stage.
Okay, can I ask then, how have we, will we be able to accelerate perhaps some of the strategic sites in the near future?
Yeah, Leader, happy to give a quick update on those. So the report touches on the reasons for some of the delays, and I think we knew that there would be a time lag with the sites coming forward. In terms of the strategic sites, Wannistow Road, about 2/3 of it has full planning permission and they've commenced on site. So that's the one that's going to plan. Dairy Farm in Abergavenny, we have the planning application in. That's been in with us for some time, and we're debating viability, and that's linked into the pylons and the costs of underground in those, which were one of the key reasons associated with allocating the site. Sudbrook Paper Mill has been through planning committee, and the scheme's been approved, and we're just finalising emails today about the Section 106 agreement, so I'm hopeful that'll be signed by the end of this week, if not next week, and then there's a period for them to commence. But in terms of physically commencing, there's an issue that's arisen with Welsh Water and some infrastructure works to complete before they can do too much more. The Fairfield Maybe site, we have the planning application in. Again, that's been with us for a couple of years, but we had an 18-month holding objection from the Welsh Government in relation to air quality and traffic, which is now resolved. That was resolved in May. So it's back with us, and again, we're discussing viability issues with a view to getting that to committee ASAP. Thinking through all the other sites now. Our Rockfield Farm in Undy, we have the planning application in. That was submitted in July. So that'll be coming forward to planning committee, possibly December. November's probably optimistic. Crick Road in Portskewett is another of our own sites where our estates colleagues are working with an RSL, and I'm pretty certain I'm right in saying a report came to Cabinet or Council recently to drive that forward. And then Land and Vinegar Hill is the last of the strategic sites. That one's, we've got very limited progress to report on that one, Leader. Haven't heard much from the developer who's on board, and colleagues in estates have tied together a number of reports for Rockfield Farm with that site to make sure it's looked at comprehensively, and we're hoping to try and progress the scheme really together, but that one isn't going fast enough, hence we've progressed as a council with Rockfield Farm on its own. So that one's possibly the one that worries me the most.
Thanks for that update, Mark. That's appreciated. I note there is some good progress in certain elements of the LDP. That's where needs to be recognised. However, this is a fundamental issue: is housing supply. Quite agree. Colleagues, anybody wish to ask any questions at this point? Dimitri.
Yeah, where'd you start? Okay, so I've read this quite badly. I think basically we've failed on housing so far, which sort of destroys any argument about trying to keep young people in this county, because that is the critical piece in all of this. We need affordable housing. But I have two quick questions. One is clarification. Try and tell you the page so you guys can look at it. It's point 3.4.2, and it's the second bullet point down, which says about affordable housing. And maybe I've read this wrong, but I want it clarified. A total of 63 affordable dwelling completions were recorded during the current monitoring period, so this year, in 1 year, and then 17 in the previous year.
Yeah.
And then that's 80 since the plan's adoption. This is significantly below 96, but that's 96 per annum. So, you're saying 80 affordable houses since the plan's adoption, but we need 96 per year. So you're not even hitting 1 year in 2 years. Have I got that right?
Yeah, that's correct, Leader. It's worth noting that the completions are from the tail end of UDP sites, because they're the ones actually being built out. But yeah, the numbers are what they are. We're well below the 96 per annum.
And I suppose if those strategic sites had got to fruition, we would have created a lot more. Sorry.
Yeah, if I can just add to that, Leader Kelly Byrne, Chief Officer for Innovation and Enterprise. I think I've said previously in Cabinet when we've looked at the need to review our LDP that housing, particularly the delivery of market housing, is a market intervention. Yes, we have some policy levers and tools, but we're not in charge of it. We are in charge of something called a social housing grant programme, which we can make contributions to delivery of affordable housing. But that grant programme has been declining quite significantly as well, year on year. So I think the fundamental issue we have here is with the pace and alacrity with which we can bring forward strategic sites. And yes, some sites are in train, but they just tend to take quite a long time, and that's the nature of the development business. There's lots of unpredictable factors. And I think what we're doing here in terms of putting forward the need to review our local development plan and bring forward more sites very quickly is understand that we have that gap, and we really have to press hard on the gas to make sure that we've got even more provision coming through so that we can guarantee that we have the basic number of sites that we need to deliver the market units, because the affordable housing only comes on the coattails of the market units, because the grant programme we have, social housing grant, is so small, we can't possibly even deliver 10 units a year with that. So it's really important that we consider all of these factors in the round and comprehensively. That's why we've had to go for plan review. That's the only strategic way that we consider all of these things and make sure that we take the right option in pressing forwards.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. That's really helpful. I know, Dimitri, you have another question as well, but absolutely agree with you on affordable housing. We need these houses badly. Yeah, you're back in now. You got your second question?
Yeah, second question is on 3.8.2. And it's the last sentence. The plan revision is likely to involve the identification and allocation of additional viable and easily deliverable sites to boost the land supply. Given what one of the officers just said, and given I don't know how long the LDP meeting was, maybe 6-7 hours of my life that I'll never get back, I really doubt the viable, easily deliverable bit of that. And so to what extent are we being incredibly optimistic about that?
I don't know if that's a question or a view. Anybody wish to respond briefly? I'm going to bring Bob in a second to talk to some of the other points.
Thanks, Leader. Until we make that approach and we call for sites and we start this process, it's hard to say. We've got to open the doors and see what we get back in. But as the local planning authority, we have to be absolutely neutral and consider all of the sites that come forward on their merits. I think what we're asking for in this report is to have the green light so we can get into that process in quite a fundamental way, so we know what options that we have before us.
Bob, you wanted to come in back on?
Yeah, if I could. Just taking us back to the time that we agreed the LDP, we were very conscious of the need in Monmouthshire to deliver a high percentage of affordable housing in our housing on our housing sites. Developers are in the game of making profits. The more affordable housing we put on our sites, the less profit they're going to make. We could actually get some of these housing sites going very quickly by saying, okay, we'll agree not to have so many housing, or if indeed any affordable housing sites. But that's not what we want. So we are in a game, if you like, if you call it a game, of negotiating with developers. They will naturally come along and say, sorry, but your affordable housing percentage is too high for us, and we have to, therefore, not negotiate with them, but actually support our case for the level of affordable housing we want. So I would not be advocating that just to get houses built, we reduce the number of affordable housing or the percentage of affordable housing, because we acknowledge that that is an absolute priority for us in Monmouthshire. And if we are not to reduce that affordable housing percentage, then if we're to bring us back on track, then we do need further housing, probably. But that's up to the review. And just to say that we're not alone in this position in Wales at the moment. A lot of other authorities are in exactly the same position, that they are falling back in their percentages that they can deliver in any 1 year.
And, yeah, thank you, Bob. Sorry, Phil. Yeah.
If I can come in on affordable housing, it was said that Monmouthshire has failed. Well, if we were solely responsible for building affordable homes, then we would have failed, but we are not the developer. We have to operate under the rules that we have. Now, have we achieved our targets? Absolutely not. Are we disappointed by that? Absolutely. I don't even think the targets are high enough, Leader, to be honest. I've always banged about affordable housing, because it's not affordable housing, it's homes. And once you have a home, you can then have a stake in your future. And if we do not revisit the LDP with a view to tackling what we know is coming, which is house prices are at the moment in Monmouthshire 7 times average salary. In some villages, they can be up to 22 times average salary. If we're going to retain a balanced population in Monmouthshire, then we have got to find a way of getting those affordable homes. So that means we're going to have to revisit. We're going to have to negotiate with developers. At the moment, the biggest way to get affordable homes on stream for young people and for generally in the population is developer-led. We negotiate and we do the deal. Now, remembering that in this LDP, our requirement from a developer to make a contribution on the total number or proportion of houses on any given development was pretty low, and we have exponentially increased that. What we have done, Leader, if you look in there, is a remarkably successful piece of the LDP, which were met with some scepticism that the requirement in rural areas for small development plots was far too high and would lead to nobody wanting to build in any rural area or village. And the converse has actually happened. I was actually a sceptic of that. I'm pleased to have been proved wrong. And what that has done is that we have seen more affordable homes for rent and for purchase for local people, and particularly young people, in our villages dotted across the county in higher numbers than we've had in living memory, to be honest. So in that particular part of the affordable housing policy, despite being a sceptic, I thought it wouldn't work. It has. I've been proved wrong, and I'm glad I've been proved wrong. Now, let's just talk about the different forms of affordable housing that we have. You have rental, that's social rent. You have the intermediate market, which is the vast majority of people, in fact, in Monmouthshire, particularly young people, where earn too much or the circumstances means that they would not be considered or be on a very low category for help with housing, but do not earn enough to actually be able to purchase a home of their own. So there are help to buy schemes. Then there is open market. And the open market is those that can raise the finance or meet the eligibility criteria for a mortgage lender. Let it not be said that we have to revisit our sites. There are circumstances that have happened. I mean, an LDP is something that is a pinpoint in time. When we passed it, that were the conditions that we faced. Where we're now at a few years down the line is things have not happened as we had anticipated, and we're going to have to move forward. I would say this though, if you're like me, you want affordable homes for young people, and I have those constituents coming to me, particularly young people, who should have no hope, I'm afraid to say, and that saddens me greatly to say that, then we've got to have more help to achieve what we want from Welsh Government and from UK Government. Now, announcements have been made this week. There will be several billion available for affordable housing. My only wish is that in conjunction with that and our own LDP, revisiting it and revising it and refining it, is that we will get that finance and that help. Because as Kelly Byrne has mentioned, our social housing grant that we get is pretty pitiful, and that does not help us deliver the homes that we need.
Thank you, Phil. I've got Kelly to come in and Mark.
Thanks very much, Leader. It was just a quick comment. I think, although recognising that the principal reason for bringing forward this partial plan review is around the shortfall in housing land supply, it was just to pick up on a very important point that Councillor Petruni made in terms of one of the drivers being retention of our young people in the county, which is absolutely what this is about. But just a reminder that an LDP process as a whole isn't just about land supply and housing and affordable housing. There are other levers and tools that I think we could deploy to ensure that we're retaining our young people. So an LDP is more of a place-shaping document. So I think, you know, again, it's got to be about shaping the right business environment, creating the right conditions for wealth creation, making sure we've got the right jobs locally as well to retain our young people. So all of these things have to be factors that we consider alongside the very important issue of housing, land supply and affordable housing. It's got to be that entire package of measures, and that's very much where we'll be coming from with this.
Thanks, Kelly, and that has to tie in, I know it's recognised in the report, with the whole strategic thinking as developing across the city region, and you know, the unlocking the opportunities which you've just alluded to. How can we actually create opportunities right across the region? So we do need to make sure the LDP aligns to that sort of thinking to a degree. Mark?
Just very briefly, Leader, if I may. I'm sorry, conscious I didn't introduce myself earlier. It's Mark Hand, Head of Planning, Housing and Place Shaping. I'm really encouraged by all the comments about homes for young people and the need for that. And as you've just said, that links in with the work on regional planning and Future Monmouthshire that started. I suppose in direct answer to Councillor Petruni's question, I think if planning operated in a bubble, there might be easy, viable, quick sites. I didn't live through the very memorable meeting that members and officers always talk about. So I'm not pointing a finger in any way, but I suppose if that is our objective to have these homes for young people and ensure our county survives, then there's a role for all of us to play in that, members and our communities. We talk about well-being of future generations, need to engage with them, and I guess ensure we listen to those views as well as perhaps the views of constituents who have paid their mortgage and are enjoying their mountainous view and would prefer not to have change. And it is a really difficult balance to make, both in planning and in your role as members and politicians. But it's trying to get to that objective together and in the best and balanced way that we can.
No, thank you, Mark. Simon?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I will ask for the data on the delivery of affordable homes in our rural communities, which I haven't seen, so I will ask for that to see whether we are hitting the target there on the 60%, whether it's just a contribution. Have we actually had any exception sites put forward, reference to since we adopted the 2012 LDP? And one of the other questions I'd just like to ask is, we're not putting any budget towards progressing. Once you've done this report, it's quite clear in there we'll use what staff we have and try and deliver on that. Surely, because I remember it being said, surely there's many sites out there which were borderline cases for coming into the LDP. Would it not be worth just revisiting back on them and just having a look to see whether, you know, it save a lot of officers' time. I mean, probably a lot of what Mark's on about there in making sure that we make sure all the proposals on delivery of sites, these key sites, tick all the boxes. Having the staff to actually go back and revisit everything that we went through for them many years, which I was part of. 7 hours of your life, Demetra, is probably 7 months of many other councillors over the LDPs. It just went on and on and on and on. So I think there is probably with the cabinet member to actually, I want to ask him, is there a better way of perhaps looking at this with officers than just thinking we're going to just go and review it? There's got to be an easier and quicker way. But you still won't deliver. That is the key question here. Are you going to deliver? We're still not going to deliver because we still have the same process. If these other sites come forward, there's still going to be time factors and you're probably talking 2 or 3 years. So we're just going to go further and further behind. So we have to have a quick fix mechanism. So my question is, have we had any sites come forward since 2012 on the exclusion, the exception sites?
Thanks, Mark. Perhaps you can pick up the delivery of rural affordable housing as well. Thanks.
Yeah, Leader, we'll have to come back on the data for the rural housing delivery that's been asked. In terms of exception sites, we haven't had any come forward to date since LDP adoption. I can come back with any more information we have on why that might be the case, or extent of any interest shown so far. So I'll come back with a written reply on that, if that's okay. Sorry, I think there's another part to the question.
Yeah, I just want to shove another one in as well. Sorry, Leader. The numbers you have here, they are Monmouthshire numbers. Are they including the developments we've just been talking the first item on the agenda? the Cameldon, Teamower, Monmouthshire Homes and other national parks, but our SRAs would have been involved with that, and their data that we will be possibly putting in our documents may be the same data, because if that is the case, it looks like my patch has probably been delivering more affordable homes than anywhere. Am I right in saying that?
Leader, the data in the AMR, it just relates to our local development plan. So it's just for the part of Monmouthshire that excludes National Park. So I think when we're reporting on separate performance indicators and affordable housing, the figures will be different if they're showing the whole county. But these figures are just RLDP, so excluding the ones in Gilwern.
Okay, thanks, Mark. I know Phil Hobson wants to come back in.
Yeah, I do. I just want to consolidate on what Councillor Simon Howe has said. Simon, we worked together for 3 years on the Affordable Housing Report. You chaired the group, and I had the dubious distinction of actually writing it. It took us 3 years. And you said, so we're going to have to bite the bullet, or something along that line. We're just going to have to get these numbers through. And you know and I know what's going to happen, I think, as members. One of the biggest problems we're going to face is wherever we try to put additional housing numbers which gives us extra affordable, there will be protests, there will be objections. I just hope when it comes to making the decision that we stick to the line, we hold the line like we did last time, and we allocate the land available for the housing that we're going to need. Because wherever we go to try and put it, Leader, we're going to face pressure not to select that site. And as we saw last time, every single site, there were objections. It's going to have to go somewhere. And I think the message that needs to go out to Monmouthshire is if you want homes for your children and grandchildren and your nephews and nieces, there's only one way they're going to be able to stay in the county, and that is that they've got to be affordable homes for all, and we've got to increase that supply. And at the moment, it will be the developers with their contribution that will provide those homes. That requires land. We don't own enough land to do that. We therefore have to bring those sites forward.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, yeah, and I remember the long debates. I remember the 13-hour meeting we had in County Hall, the old County Hall, and then another 7-hour meeting in the Leisure Centre. Was it 7 hours or even longer than that, I think?
It was only part-time.
So it was a challenging couple of years, no doubt. Okay, so the recommendations before us, I won't read them out again, but we do, I think we're all in agreement that we submit the AMR and we commence an early review of the Monmouthshire LDP due to all of those points which have been identified. So the recommendation is 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. All in favour? Thank you very much. Okay, move on to the last item, and that is the future Monmouthshire proposed new delivery option for tourism, leisure, culture and youth services. Bob Greenland.
Thank you, Leader. Members will be acutely aware that as we've gone through the last few years, it has been in the area of non-statutory services that most of the cuts have come to our budgets. I think we have prioritised education, social services, which are the two big spenders. Inevitably, therefore, the other services, and the services in question here are amongst those, have suffered the most. There have been cuts of 1.65 million to the services under review here. Services which in the last few years have delivered £17 million worth of savings. But we have reached a point where we cannot any further, as we move along, find savings that will substantially help the problems that we know are still to come. But also, we need to ask ourselves, are the current methods of delivering these services the best way of doing it? Are there better delivery ways that some of these services can go? And back in 2014, we began a process to look at alternative forms of delivery, And then last year we came back to Cabinet and Council indeed, and we asked again if we could take a wider look at how we can deliver services into the longer term, that what is going to be the future delivery of public services in Monmouthshire for years to come. Officers have been involved in a lot of work on this in the last few months, and in fact I think we've got all the 4 officers who I think, can I see Kath at the back there? Yes, I can. All 4 officers who have helped in this work and are authors to this report are here with us today. As we've moved forward, we have listened and learnt from what has happened and what has been the evidence of these changes in services in other parts of the country. And so we have come up with some proposals which form the basis, or we've taken them through the outline business case, which you've got in front of you today as an appendix, where it's considered 4 options. They're given in the report, no need for me to read them out now, but the conclusion of the strategic business case is that we should in fact go for one of those options, which is to move the services into an alternative delivery model. And what we're doing with the report that you have in front of you here is to ask that Cabinet should approve that we move to the stage of creating or developing a full business case, which will then be further considered by members. Now, my colleagues will know that it isn't just now that we have been considering the work that these officers have been doing. We have been having updates from them as the work has proceeded. And so I'm sure all of us in Cabinet will be well aware of the proposals that are in front of us. They have also been considered by a joint select committee, and their comments are included in the report. I would draw your attention to the last paragraph in paragraph 3.4, or the last bit of paragraph 3.4, where the select committee is suggesting that they would want to take a further look at this later on. And there is also in that paragraph reference to a seminar. Now that seems to me that we will, the select committee would be open to all members. A seminar is also open to all members. So we'll be duplicating there, bringing this back before members. I'm sure there must be a way that we can find that this hasn't, that this need not be duplicated, but that all members be given the opportunity to comment further before the decision is finally made by Cabinet. But I bring you back to the recommendations that we have in front of us, and that's to give full consideration to the strategic outline case, and also you'll find an appendix which is the findings of our consultants Anthony Collins, and then to agree to move to the next stage, that's the development of a full business case, and to continue the staff, community and service user consultation process. And I should also add that throughout all of this process, there has been full consultation with everyone, and particularly with the staff. That has been a regular part of the process that has led up to where we are now. I think also, just to add one further point, that at this stage we believe that the bringing in the museums into this is a little premature. There's more work needs to be done in that area, and I think also in the youth area. Is that right? Or no, adult education, isn't it? Adult education, yeah. So with the exception of those services, the business case will look at the others, and then at a later stage we'll be considering the future of museums and adult education. And with that, Leader, I open it to debate.
Okay, thank you, Bob, and thanks for taking us through that. And it's a big bit of work. Can I thank all officers who've really grabbed this and have been working really hard over the last several months to bring forward some alternatives. We strongly believe in maintaining locally accessible services, don't we? It's one of our key 4 priorities. And if we're going to find a way to do that in a time with shrinking resources, we have to look at alternative models. There's no doubt about that if we really do want to preserve those valuable services which our community have told us they want. So it's absolutely right that we pursue a different model. So I'm very happy for us to move forward and develop a full business case, which is for further consideration. It's not the this isn't the last opportunity for members to discuss this. Clearly, but we need that full business case so we can actually interrogate it and really have a deeper understanding. I sat in on the Joint Select Committee and listened to their views, and whilst they shared the principle of going forward, I know they had some concerns about figures and various things. And I thank the chair of that committee, Councillor Sarah Jones, for writing to us all as cabinet members to outline those points, which was very useful, and as Bob says, have been incorporated into the report. Hopefully some of those points can be further answered when we bring this next to members, obviously in that more developed state. Colleagues, I'm going to open it up now. Anybody? Yeah, Phil.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Just to add that as well as the staff consultation, we've also presented this report to the trade unions through the JAG committee, and it was generally quite well received.
Good. Okay, Dimitri.
Yeah, well, I've been in different union meetings then because they definitely wasn't well received. A few questions, if I may. One is methodology, and I've gone through the options. I've noticed when we go through all 4 options, the authors of the strategic case seem to be officers. To what extent is that whole report written by officers or the consultants, Anthony and Collins? I was just intrigued, particularly on like option 2, for example, where the kind of in-house case is referred to, where there's no more scope for maximising income or making reforms. To what extent is that the officer opinion or is that the independent consultant's opinion? It's not clear from the report, given the authors are officers. So I'd be intrigued if it's not the consultant's opinion, were the consultants, did they have the remit to look at in-house reform and what that could achieve? Just a question on that. I've noticed on the interim structure, I've been doing a lot of research around alternative delivery models, not as much as I would like, but the interim structure, to what extent the interim structure would be, put it this way, to what extent officers who are currently doing the review and doing the business case will then move to the new organisation if it's created? Is there anything stopping that? Because if there isn't, I'd be really concerned about officers who are developing these strategic cases, then subsequently being employed by the new company, as it were. I think I would be really deeply concerned by that. Hopefully you can put my fears at rest. These are also really quick fixes, according to the research. We've already spent 90,000 developing this case. So what do we estimate the cost of initial setup and transformation would be for whatever model we eventually go for on option 3? I wonder if we have any kind of indicative figure of how much that would be. Say we move to a new model and we still don't precisely know what that is. What mechanism do we envisage to have to bring it back in-house if it fails? There are several case studies already out there by various councils where they've had to bring it back in-house because it's failed. And I'm wondering what mechanisms we have in place for that. And if we go down the TECL route, I'm not saying we will, but if we do go down the TECL route, that's set out by EU legislation, EU directive, limiting external trade to, I think, 20%, if I remember correctly. If we leave the European Union, to what extent could this be privatised through the back door? I.e. that the directive will no longer apply, there will be no cut on 20% external trade, presumably it could be 100% then. I'm just wondering if we thought about that. And lastly, you'd be pleased to know, to what extent, when all these services are migrated, if they're migrated, will it have effect? Have we done analysis on the effect it will have on other services that we're keeping in-house? Education, for example, because we all know the physical buildings like leisure centres or Chepstow School is linked to the school. And I'm wondering, have we looked at what effects this will have?
Thanks, Dimitri. It's a shame you didn't turn up to the Joint Select Committee. Those have been very helpful questions to pose there. So there's quite a few there. Who would wish to tackle those? Have you got them in order? I'll hand it over to you as the team. Ian.
Thank you, Leader. Ian Saunders, Head of Tourism, Leisure and Culture and Youth. Thank you, Dimitri. Some excellent questions there. And yes, a lot of that was brought up in Select and was discussed in a lot of depth. I think the methodology we've put in place has been, if it's a concern on the neutrality of it, Anthony Collins obviously were selected by a tender process and have taken through the process of due diligence from all the teams and all the evidence that's gathered. And they put together a lot of the formulation of the evidence that's inside the strategic outline case that's before you. So I think officers took that information and put it into table format, and as you can tell by the length of that document, there's an awful lot of information there. There wasn't, input as you're suggesting of a positive or a negative, because we've tried to, through the process, be as neutral as possible, because we all want these services to succeed wherever they sit. That's our outcome is, positively and sustainability of these services. I think the question of the interim structure, there will come a time, no doubt, that officers need to exit the proceedings, because there is going to come a time, it's not yet though, when those conversations have got to take place. So the structure as we go forward, up to a point, when members make a decision either to transform into an ADM or transform internally, I guess at that stage there will be a decision made to who is going to be part of that, whether it's the existing team or whether it's a new team that come in and take the leadership. In fairness, from trusts and other groups that we've gone to see nationwide and locally, the people involved in the setup and the making of the alternative delivery model or the trust have gone into the trust by the very nature that we've always asked for solutions internally. And I think from memory, I can't recall too many trusts where a new team is put in place, just because that is the nature of the work we're talking about. And Welsh Government, in fairness, with their paper on alternative delivery models, are quite clear on some of those processes, and I think that's one of the documents that you've got as well. I think was there any other questions?
Yeah, there was. How would we divorce from it if it wasn't something like that, wasn't it? How do we bring it back to the council if needs be?
Yeah, for every failure, I guess there's more successes at the moment. The people that we're talking with, and all the positive case studies, have been for success of alternative delivery models. And yes, there are cases where things haven't gone quite according to plan. I guess that's something that will play out as we go through the process that we're following. And I guess with legal and other, there would need to be clauses on how services would return to council if indeed the ultimate failure did take place. So with the Brexit question, that was posed at Select, and Anthony Collins, solicitor, said that's a question that, whilst yes, it's on the horizon, you've just got to, you could put a lot of things in up as reasons to not do things, but you've just got to get on with it, is what was the advice from solicitors.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ian. Thank you for answering those. I absolutely agree with that last point. We can't put our lives on hold for a couple of years. I'm going to move on, actually. No, is it a quick one then, Dimitri, if you have, but not a quick.
There was 2 more questions about initial setup and transformation and effect on other services, but don't worry, if you're not bothered.
Yeah, if I can just cover a few things off there, Leader, just to confirm on question 1, was the report and the information provided by the consultants or was it staff? I think what we've tried to do to minimise costs for the council is make sure the consultants are deployed on providing us with the outline case. We provide the raw materials and a lot of the numbers and a lot of the facts and figures, but actually the interpretation and how that's packaged up, it can't possibly our work. That needs the impartiality and the independence. So that's absolutely been the divide that we've pursued. In terms of the interim structure as well, I think Ian's covered most of that. But we are going to have to make changes to our structures, whatever happens, because obviously the pressures are on with, you know, the 17-18 budget and so on. So changes will have to be made irrespective of what the final model is. To cover the point as well about the £90,000, and again, this was raised at the Select Committee, £30,000 has been spent to date on the Amion report, which was specific to museums. And that report is being taken forward, as the report alludes to. That's being taken forward now as part of CAS's team. So those recommendations will be implemented, and we feel at this time we can do that in-house. We can be successful in taking those forward in-house. As regards the other £60,000, we haven't committed all of that yet. That's the total budget we have available to us to try and do this piece of work in full, so we can provide an update in terms of where we are in spending that amount of money. But we certainly haven't spent it all, because we've got a team of staff that we're trying to use as much as possible in order to do much of the leg work. I think in terms of the effect then on other council services, I think there's two aspects to this. There's obviously the financial impact. You know, it's not just about what could potentially go if that option is decided upon. It's about the impact on what stays. So Marie Bartlett is doing a piece of work at the moment in terms of the cost overheads and how they're distributed and the impact that that would have right across the organisation, so we can be clear about that. And then I think there's the physicality issue, you know, the connection. So, for example, the connection between schools, pools, leisure centres, which is absolutely of paramount importance. And you'd expect all of that to be set out very clearly in any kind of agreement if those options are taken forward in the future. So, for example, maintaining access for schools would be a priority, and I'm sure it's something the council would wish to see into the future. And they're all of the kinds of things that you can build into any agreement to make sure that access to those services is preserved and maintained.
Okay, thank you. Simon?
Yes, and thank you, Leader. I just want to ask the Cabinet Member one question, and it's a straight question, really. If we do not take this forward and the Council rejects this, does that mean services will close, leisure centres? And I must just declare an interest. I am a REACH member, but I'm suspended at the moment because I'm not using it. So just make a note of that, Rob, please. My question is, if we do not take this forward, are we going to retain what we've got with finances at the moment? Yes or no?
I think you know that our priorities are to keep local services wherever we can. And if this weren't to move forward, then we would be searching for other areas in which we could retain, in ways that we could retain local services. But I have to say, we're nearly at the end of the road, frankly, in terms of being able to deliver them in the way that we are delivering at the moment. So if we didn't go forward with this, we would have to find another alternative way forward.
Okay, thanks for that. And my last question now is, and it does really concern me too, Kelly, the outdoor education buildings, well, that we own two of, and there are others as well, how will they be set up with our partners, or will that be in the report? Because for me, they are hemorrhaging money at the moment, i.e. they cost a lot of money to look after. Have they still got a future? Will they have a future in the report, or are we looking at actually not incorporating them in the alternative delivery model, perhaps a different direction with them? I have said that in the Select. Perhaps there may be other directions we can go with them, but still retain them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, it's a great point. And, you know, just to set out really that this is a strategic outline case, what it tries to establish is a compelling case for change. So if you like, it's the first rung on the ladder. And I think going back to Councillor Petruni's point, what we'll try and do now at the next stage is not disregard any of the options. They all get taken forward, but we'll be able to go into further detail in terms of costs, benefits, risks, and have that much more detailed business case information. Outdoor education is clearly key in all of this. It's quite a complex model, because even though we own two of the assets, we've got another partner who owns another one of the assets. Some of our partners are full partners, some of them are customers. So it's quite a complex model to disaggregate and understand what kind of future it can have. But we certainly believe, and from the work that we've done, it does have a very promising future. And I think that future, first and foremost, is about providing key services to our schools, because there are well-being outcomes for us to consider here. But beyond that, we believe there's commercial potential which is untapped as well. So Councillor Howarth is right. It's about identifying the best place to take that forward as part of the wider collective, because, and I think it reflects upon a point that, again, Councillor Petruni made, you know, we're watching very closely what's going on in the market. You know, there's key intelligence there. And yes, there are some trust models that are failing, and they tend to be because they don't have critical mass. The ones that we've looked at are just pure leisure trust, for example. And I think the reason why we've possibly identified this as a forerunner at the moment is because there is a blend of different services which sort of lends to critical mass. And I think that's quite important, that we keep learning and we keep making sure that we're taking that forward and informing the model that we will finally set out.
Thank you, Kelly. And I think your question was a strong one, Simon, to Bob, and Bob captured it right and captured it well. And, you know, we have to find other ways to do things in this authority. We are, and I won't apologise for raising it again, we are so low funded compared with everywhere else in Wales. And I was at a rural forum last week of authorities in similar positions where we're seeing, you know, services, really difficult to provide services in rural communities and make them sustainable. And that is a massive pressure. And that's why we're trying to put a lot of pressure on Wales Government to realign their funding to recognise some of the pressures we have in rural communities. That's really important for the future of services which we want to sustain in local communities. We don't want our communities, you know, falling apart as a, you know, and the fabric getting sort of demolished because important services or access to services has been eroded. We have to find alternatives. So I thank you for the work that's gone on. I look forward to seeing the full business case that we can discuss and debate. I agree with Bob's view in response to the Select Committee's wishes, and oh no, sorry, I was on the last one. I was on the LDP. Sorry, I was on the LDP, a seminar. It was on the seminar?
No, it's on this one.
It was on the seminar on here.
One,
okay,
yeah.
sorry, it was right. Okay, and I absolutely agree then. Let's have a seminar with that full business case so all members can come and take part and get a deeper understanding of this. Let's not duplicate seminars and joint selects. So yes, let's try and make progress on that. So the recommendations then are as outlined in 2.1. It's recommended that the Cabinet agrees the following: to give consideration to the appended strategic outline case based on the independent findings of Anthony Collins, and to agree to move to the next stage of developing a full business case for further consideration by members, and to continue the staff and community and service user consultation process. All in favour of those? Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, officers. That brings the meeting to a close today. Thank you for your inputs.